Never imagined, his voice cracked, I never imagined you were teaching the Storm Child. The training grounds of the Storm Court had been built for this exact purpose, a wide-open courtyard surrounded by high walls, designed to contain and channel storm magic safely. Alara watched from a balcony as Demon worked with Arya below, teaching their daughter to control the power in her blood. Feel the electricity in the air, Demon instructed, kneeling beside Arya. It's always there, waiting. You just need to ask it politely to come to you. Arya closed her eyes, her small face scrunched in concentration. After a moment, tiny sparks began dancing between her fingertips. That's it. Demon's pride was evident. Now, try to make it bigger. Don't force it, invite it. The sparks grew brighter, larger, until small bolts of lightning were crackling around Arya's hands. She opened her eyes and gasped with delight. I did it. Mama, look. I did it. Alara waved down at her, trying to smile. But watching Demon and Arya together hurt in ways she hadn't expected. They looked so natural together. So right. Like a missing piece had finally clicked into place. This was what Arya had been missing all her life. Not just a father, but someone who understood her magic. Someone who could guide her. And this was what Demon had been missing too, the daughter he had never known he needed. She's remarkable. Alara turned to find an older man standing beside her. He wore the robes of a court counselor, and his weathered face was kind. I'm Lord Aldwin, he introduced himself. I served King Aldrich, and now I serve King Demon. I remember you from before. Do you? Alara's tone was cool. Why should a baby change that? Because everything would have changed. Demon rose to his feet, keeping Arya close. If I had known, I would have found a way. Anyway. I would have. You would have what? Alara's composure cracked. Married Vienna anyway? Kept your legitimate heirs while my daughter grew up as a bastard? Don't pretend you would have done anything differently. I didn't marry Vienna. The words hung in the air. Alara stared at him. What? The truth revealed. I didn't marry Vienna, Demon repeated. The wedding never happened. 2 weeks after you left, my father died. The day before my coronation, Vienna was arrested for his murder. Alara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. What? The poison you had been treating him for, it was Vienna all along. She had been slowly killing him for years, hoping to control the kingdom through me. Demon's expression hardened with old rage. She was also behind the false evidence planted in your chambers. The love potion, the accusations. All of it designed to force me to choose between you and civil war. But you did choose, Alara said, her voice shaking. You rejected me. You called our bond false. You banished me. Because she threatened you. Demon's voice broke. The night before the trial, Vienna came to me. She said if I didn't reject you publicly, her people would make sure you died accidentally during your journey home. She had assassins ready, Alara. I rejected you to save your life. The words hit her like a physical blow. Alara gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. You never told me. You never explained. I couldn't. If I had told you the truth, if I had shown any weakness, Vienna would have known her threats worked. She would have kept using them. Demon moved toward her, desperate. I hoped, that a clean break would let you start fresh somewhere safe. That you could find happiness without me. I never imagined, his voice cracked, I never imagined you were. The window, exactly as he had been 5 years ago, was Demon. He turned around. The reunion. Time stopped. Alara forgot how to breathe. Because Demon looked both exactly the same and completely different. The same tall frame, the same dark hair, the same storm gray eyes. But there were new lines around those eyes. A hardness to his jaw. A weariness in the set of his shoulders. He looked like a man who had suffered. Good, Alara thought viciously. Let him hurt like I hurt. But then Demon's gaze dropped to Arya, and his expression shattered completely. He took one step forward, then another, then sank to his knees so he could meet his daughter at eye level. Hello, he said softly, his voice breaking. You must be Arya. Arya stared at him, her gray eyes, so like his, wide with wonder. You're my papa? Yes. A single tear rolled down Demon's cheek. I'm your papa. And I am so sorry that I didn't know about you until now. It's okay. Arya, with the fearless trust of children, stepped forward and touched his face. Mama said you were far away. But you're here now. Demon's arms came around her carefully, like he was afraid she might break. Or disappear. He pulled her into an embrace and buried his face in her dark hair, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Alara watched, her heart torn between fury and something dangerously close to sympathy. She had imagined this moment countless times. Had imagined screaming at him, hurting him, making him understand what he had done to them. But she had never imagined this, Demon breaking down, holding their daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world. Finally, he lifted his head and looked at Alara. The pain in his eyes was so raw, so absolute, that she had to look away. Alara, he whispered. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know you were pregnant when I sent you away. Would it have mattered? Her voice came out cold. Controlled. You made your choice. The kingdom over us. Duty over love. How could she make a 5-year-old understand that fathers didn't always love their children just because they existed? If we refuse, she asked the commander quietly. Then King Demon himself will come. With the full force of the royal army. Miss Windhaven, he knows about his daughter. He's been searching for you for 2 years. There's no hiding anymore. 2 years. He'd been looking for them for 2 years. Alara closed her eyes and made her decision. Give me an hour to pack. The return to Storm Court. The journey took 3 days by carriage. Arya spent the entire time pressed against the window, watching the landscape change from mountains to forests to finally the coastal cliffs where the Storm Court rose like a dark jewel against the sea. It's beautiful, Arya breathed. Alara said nothing. Her hands were clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white. Every mile that brought them closer to Demon made the broken bond in her chest ache worse. She had lived with the pain for 5 years, had learned to function around it. But proximity made it scream. They arrived at dusk. The palace looked exactly the same, black stone, silver spires, lightning crackling around the towers. But everything felt different. Heavier. More dangerous. Servants swarmed the carriage the moment it stopped. Arya clung to Alara's hand, her earlier excitement turning to nervousness in the face of so much overwhelming grandeur. This way, a steward said, gesturing toward the main entrance. King Demon is waiting. They were led through familiar corridors. Alara's feet remembered the path even though her mind had tried to forget. Every turn brought back memories, the library where Demon had first kissed her, the garden where they had fallen in love, the throne room where he had destroyed her. Finally, they reached a set of carved double doors. The steward pushed them open, revealing a private audience chamber. Smaller than the throne room, but no less grand. And standing at. It happened on a Tuesday morning, exactly like the first time. Alara was in her workshop, teaching Arya how to grind herbs, when the knock came. Sharp. Official. Impossible to ignore. She opened the door to find soldiers in silver uniforms, the same uniforms she remembered from 5 years ago. Behind them, more soldiers surrounded the cottage. At least 20 of them. Miss Alara Windhaven? The commander asked. Alara's blood turned to ice. She positioned herself in the doorway, blocking their view inside. That's me. What do you want? We have orders to escort you and your daughter to the Storm Court. Immediately. No. The word came out fierce and absolute. I was banished. Returning means execution. The banishment has been rescinded by order of King Demon Stormborn. King. He was king now. Which meant his father had died, and Demon had inherited the throne. I don't care what his orders are, Alara said coldly. My daughter and I aren't going anywhere. The commander's expression softened slightly. Miss Windhaven, we have specific instructions not to harm you or the child. But we also have orders to bring you back by any means necessary. Please don't make this difficult. Mama? Arya appeared at her side, her gray eyes wide. What's happening? The commander's breath caught audibly when he saw Arya. Those eyes. That face. There was no denying whose child she was. Your Majesty was correct, the commander murmured. She's his daughter. She's my daughter, Alara snapped. And we're not. But Arya was staring at the soldiers with sudden understanding dawning on her face. You know my papa? You can take me to him, Arya, no. Please, Mama. Arya grabbed her hand, her expression pleading. I want to meet him. I want to see where the magic comes from. Please. Alara looked down at her daughter's hopeful face and felt her resolve crumble. How could she explain that protecting Arya meant keeping her away from the man who had already rejected her once? Could help, the person whose blood ran through Arya's veins, was the last person Alara ever wanted to see again. The questions begin. As Arya grew older, the questions became harder to answer. Mama, why don't I have a papa like the other children? Alara would brush her daughter's dark hair and search for safe answers. Some families are different, sweetheart. We have each other. That's what matters. But where is he? My papa? Far away. Does he know about me? That question always hurt the most. No, darling. He doesn't. Why not? Doesn't he want to know me? How could Alara explain? How could she tell her 5-year-old daughter that her father had rejected them before she was even born? That he had chosen politics over love, duty over family? It's complicated, she would say, hating the inadequacy of it. But Arya was too smart to accept vague answers forever. One night, when she was 5.5, she climbed into Alara's bed and asked the question that changed everything. Mama, do you think my papa can do magic like me? Alara's heart stopped. Why do you ask that? Because the magic feels like it's looking for something. Someone. Arya's gray eyes were impossibly wise for a child so young. Like it knows there's supposed to be another person who understands. The bond. Even broken, even rejected, some part of it still existed through their daughter. Yes, Alara admitted quietly. Your father has the same magic as you. Then can we find him? Maybe he could teach me. Maybe, Arya's voice grew excited, maybe if he met me, he would want to stay. Oh, the innocent hope of children. It broke Alara's heart all over again. It's not that simple, my love. Why not? Because he's a prince who chose his kingdom over us. Because seeing him again would destroy me. Because I'm terrified he'll try to take you away. Because some people can't be found, Alara said instead. Even with magic. But fate, as always, had other plans. The soldiers arrive. It happened on a complicated questions about the world. And she was unusually strong. Once, Alara watched her lift a fallen tree branch that should have been too heavy for a child her size. But the most concerning development came shortly after Arya's 4th birthday. The first storm. Alara was preparing dinner when she heard Arya screaming in the yard. She dropped everything and ran outside to find her daughter surrounded by 3 older village boys. They had cornered her against the cottage wall and were taunting her. Freak, one shouted. Your eyes are weird. Demon child, another laughed. No wonder you don't have a father. Arya's little hands were clenched into fists, tears streaming down her face. Leave me alone. Make us, the biggest boy sneered, shoving her hard. And that's when it happened. The sky, which had been clear moments before, suddenly erupted with dark clouds. Thunder cracked overhead. And a single bolt of lightning struck the ground between Arya and the boys, not enough to hurt anyone, but close enough to send them screaming in terror. Arya stood frozen, her gray eyes wide with shock, her hands still glowing faintly with static electricity. Alara scooped her up and ran inside, bolting the door. Her daughter trembled in her arms, crying hysterically. "Mama, what happened? What did I do?" "Shoo, sweetheart. It's okay." But Alara's heart was racing. Storm magic. Arya had inherited her father's storm magic. "You're special, that's all. Very special." The boys said I'm a freak. "You're not a freak." Alara held her tighter. "You're powerful. But we need to keep this a secret, okay? No one can know what you can do." From that day forward, Alara began teaching Arya control. How to push the magic down. How to hide the static that sometimes crackled around her fingers when she was upset. How to be ordinary in a world that would fear her if they knew the truth. But she couldn't teach Arya everything. Because Alara didn't have storm magic herself. And the person who. Building a new life. The mountain village of Ravencrest was nothing like the coastal towns Alara had known. Here, winter lasted 8 months, the wind howled through narrow valleys, and people minded their own business. It was perfect. Alara arrived with barely enough coins to last a week, pregnant and heartbroken, with nothing but the clothes on her back and her healing skills. She found work quickly. Mountain folk were always in need of healers, especially ones who didn't ask questions about how injuries happened. She rented a tiny cottage on the edge of the village. 2 rooms, a fireplace, and a view of snow-capped peaks. It wasn't much, but it was hers. No one here knew about the Storm Court. No one knew about Prince Demon or Lady Vienna or the bond that still ached in her chest like a wound that wouldn't heal. The pregnancy was difficult. Without the support of the bond, without Demon's presence, Alara felt wrong somehow. Incomplete. She grew weak easily, tired quickly, and worried constantly that the rejection had damaged the baby. But on a freezing night in midwinter, with only the village midwife for help, Alara gave birth to a perfect, healthy daughter. The child with storm eyes. The baby opened her eyes for the first time and Alara's breath caught. Gray. Silver gray, exactly like Demon's. The color of thunderstorms and lightning. "What will you name her?" the midwife asked. Alara looked down at her daughter, at those impossible eyes that would mark her forever as Demon's child, and made a decision. Arya. Her name is Arya Windhaven. No mention of Stormborn. No claim to royalty. This child would be hers alone. The first few years were hard. Alara worked constantly, healing the sick, delivering babies, setting broken bones, all while caring for a young child. Money was always tight. Food sometimes scarce. But they had each other, and somehow, that was enough. Arya grew quickly. By age 2, she could speak in full sentences. By 3, she was asking, "Why for violence?" He looked at Vienna, whose family controlled the entire navy. And he made his choice. The rejection. I, Demon Stormborn, Prince of the Storm Court, formally reject the false bond with Alara Windhaven. His voice rang cold and clear across the silent hall. She is nothing to me. A temporary madness, now cured. The words hit Alara like lightning. She felt something inside her chest begin to break, not physically, but in a way that was somehow worse. The bond, that beautiful connection that had felt so right, started to crack and splinter. Furthermore, Demon continued, his face a mask of stone, Alara Windhaven is hereby banished from the Storm Court. If she returns, she will be executed for treason. Demon, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Please. His gray eyes met hers one last time, and she saw the truth there. He was in agony. This was killing him. But he was doing it anyway. "Remove her," he commanded. Guards seized Alara's arms. As they dragged her from the hall, she heard Vienna's triumphant laugh, heard the nobles murmuring their approval, heard the doors slam shut behind her. They threw her into a carriage at dawn, gave her a small purse of coins, and sent her away. As the storm court disappeared behind her, Alara placed both hands on her stomach and made a silent promise to the child growing there. "He may have rejected us," she whispered. "But we will survive. We will build a new life. And someday, somehow, we will be strong enough that nothing can hurt us again." The storm clouds gathered overhead, weeping rain, as Alara disappeared into the mountains. 5 years would pass before she saw Demon Stormborn again. "Don't lie to me." Vienna's voice cracked like a whip. "Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think the servants wouldn't talk? I know everything, you stupid girl. Every stolen kiss, every whispered promise." Alara lifted her chin. "The bond between us is real. You can't fight fate." "Can't I?" Vienna smiled coldly. "Watch me." The next morning, Alara was summoned to the throne room. Not to the king's private chambers where she usually worked, but to the main hall where the entire court had gathered. Hundreds of nobles in their finest clothes, all staring at her as guards escorted her down the crimson carpet. Demon stood beside his father's throne, his face pale with horror. The king sat weakly, clearly not well enough for this. And Vienna stood center stage, triumph written across her perfect features. "My lords and ladies," Vienna announced, "I have discovered a traitor in our midst. This woman," she pointed at Alara, "has been secretly seducing Prince Demon while pretending to heal our beloved king. She used dark magic to create a false bond, hoping to position herself as future queen." "That's a lie," Alara shouted. "The bond is real." "Is it?" Vienna produced a vial of shimmering liquid. "I found this in her chambers. A love potion. Illegal magic designed to manipulate emotions and create false attractions." "I never," Alara began, but Vienna cut her off. "And furthermore," Vienna continued, her voice rising dramatically, "this scheming peasant carries a bastard child, hoping to use it to trap the prince into marriage." Gasps echoed through the hall. Alara's hand flew protectively to her stomach as hundreds of judgmental eyes turned on her. How had Vienna known? How had she found out so quickly? "Demon," Alara pleaded, looking at him desperately. "Tell them the truth. Tell them the bond is real." For a long, terrible moment, Demon stared at her. Pain, longing, and conflict warred across his face. Then he looked at his father, weak, dying, needing peace. But when Alara responded, when she wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him closer, the kiss deepened into something fierce and claiming. Thunder rumbled outside, whether from the storm or from Demon's emotion, she couldn't tell. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But the bond doesn't lie. You're mine, Alara. You've always been mine. And you're mine," she whispered back. They both knew they were heading toward disaster. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms while the storm raged outside, they didn't care. The growing danger. 3 months passed in secret happiness. Alara continued healing the king, who grew stronger each day. Demon continued his engagement to Vienna while his heart belonged entirely to Alara. It was an impossible situation, but they clung to hope that somehow, they could make it work. Then Alara discovered she was pregnant. She knew immediately, healers always knew their own bodies. She stood in her chambers, hand pressed to her still flat stomach, and felt her whole world shift. A child. Demon's child. She had to tell him. But when she arrived at their usual meeting spot that night, she found the garden full of people. A celebration was underway, nobles, servants, everyone gathered around a central fountain where Demon stood next to Vienna. "We're moving the wedding forward," Vienna announced, her voice carrying clearly. "Next month, Demon and I will be married." The kingdom needs stability, and we intend to provide it. Alara felt her heart shatter. She turned to flee, but a servant grabbed her arm. Miss Alara, Lady Vienna wishes to speak with you. The trap springs. They brought her to Vienna's private chambers, a suite of rooms decorated in whites and silvers, cold and beautiful like their owner. Vienna dismissed the servants and circled Alara like a predator studying prey. So, Vienna said softly. The little healer thinks she can steal a prince. I don't know what you. Their first real conversation happened in the palace gardens 3 days after her arrival. Alara had been collecting moonflowers for a sleeping draught when she heard footsteps behind her. I'm sorry, Demon said without preamble. For everything. For the bond happening like this. For not being free. Alara kept her hands busy with the flowers. You should go. Someone might see. I don't care. He moved closer, and even though he didn't touch her, she felt the warmth of his presence. Tell me about yourself. I want to know everything. So she told him. About growing up in Saltmere, about losing her mother young, about discovering her healing gift. And he listened like every word was precious. In return, he told her about the burden of the crown. About growing up knowing every decision was watched, judged, political. About the loneliness of power. I never wanted to marry Vienna, he admitted. But my father was sick even then, and the kingdom needed the Coldwater alliance. It was my duty. And now? Alara asked quietly. His gray eyes met hers. Now I know what I've been missing my entire life. Now duty feels like a cage. They met every night after that. Sometimes in the gardens, sometimes in the library, once in the rain on the practice grounds where Demon showed her how he could summon lightning. She watched in awe as electricity danced between his fingertips, as clouds gathered at his command. It's beautiful, she breathed. It's lonely, he corrected. I've never had anyone to share it with. Until you. By the 3rd week, they had progressed from talking to touching, careful, innocent touches that still sent sparks through both of them. His hand in her hair. Her fingers tracing the scar on his brow. The bond between them growing stronger, more desperate, more impossible to deny. And then, one night in the library, with rain hammering against the windows and the fireplace casting dancing shadows, Demon kissed her. It was gentle at first, almost questioning. Kindly. I'll show you to the king's chambers. Alara nodded numbly, following the woman through more corridors. Her mind spun with confusion and hurt. Fated mates weren't supposed to be engaged to other people. The bond was supposed to be sacred, unbreakable. But apparently, politics mattered more than fate. The secret meetings began. King Aldrich Stormborn was dying. Alara could see at the moment she entered his bedchamber. The king who had ruled for 40 years lay propped against silk pillows, his breathing labored, his once powerful frame wasted by illness. Poison, he rasped when he saw her examining the herbs on his bedside table. Slow acting. They think I don't know. Who? Alara asked, carefully checking his pulse. Does it matter? The king's smile was bitter. Someone who wants my son on the throne before I can name a different heir. Someone who wants control. His eyes, still sharp despite his condition, studied her face. You're the one. Your Majesty? The one my son has been waiting for his entire life. I can see it in your eyes, you feel the bond too. Alara's hand stilled. He's engaged to Lady Vienna. A political arrangement made when he was 16. The king coughed harshly. I was a fool. I thought I could strengthen the kingdom by tying us to the Coldwater Naval Fleet. But I never accounted for fate having other plans. What should I do? Heal me if you can. Stay if you dare. But be careful, child. Vienna Coldwater is more dangerous than she appears. Alara threw herself into her work, brewing potions and drawing the poison slowly from the king's system. It would take weeks, maybe months, but she could save him. She had to. And every evening, when the palace quieted and the servants retired, Demon came to her. The stolen moments. From Saltmere village. Demon didn't seem to hear. He crossed the distance between them in 4 long strides, stopping just inches away. Close enough that Alara could smell rain and ozone clinging to him. Close enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the scar above his left eyebrow. "Do you feel it?" he asked quietly. Desperately. She nodded, not trusting her voice. His hand rose as if to touch her face, then dropped. "This is impossible." The political trap. "Demon, there you are." The voice cut through the moment like a blade through silk. Alara turned to see a woman gliding into the hall, tall, blonde, beautiful in the way that made ordinary people feel small. She wore a gown of ice blue silk that probably cost more than Alara's entire village earned in a year. Lady Vienna Coldwater. Even in Saltmere, everyone knew that name. Vienna's pale blue eyes swept over Alara with barely concealed contempt before focusing on Demon. "The council is waiting for us, my love. We need to discuss the wedding arrangements." Wedding. The word hit Alara like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, and Demon's hand shot out to steady her. The touch sent electricity racing up her arm, actual electricity, small harmless sparks that made them both gasp. Vienna's expression turned to ice. "What was that?" "Nothing," Demon said quickly, releasing Alara. His face had gone carefully blank. "Lady Vienna, this is Miss Windhaven. She's been summoned to assist with my father's illness." "Ah yes, the healer." Vienna's smile was sharp as broken glass. "How quaint. Well, do your work quickly, girl. The Storm Court has no use for common village folk lingering about." She took Demon's arm possessively and steered him toward the door. He glanced back once at Alara, his expression filled with such pain that her breath caught. Then they were gone, leaving her alone in the vast hall with only servants for company. A hand touched her shoulder gently. "Come," an older woman said. Crackled constantly around the highest towers, not from storms, but from the royal family's magic. The Stormborns could command thunder itself. Inside, servants rushed through marble corridors. Courtiers in silk and jewels whispered behind their fans. Alara felt completely out of place in her simple blue dress and worn traveling cloak. She caught her reflection in a polished mirror and hardly recognized herself, dark hair windblown from the journey, green eyes wide with worry, hands still faintly stained with herb residue. "This way," her escort murmured, guiding her through an archway into a receiving hall. And that's when she saw him. The instant recognition. Prince Demon Stormborn stood by the windows, his back to her, watching storm clouds gather over the sea. He was tall, with black hair that fell to his shoulders and shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of a kingdom. He wore dark leather and silver, practical clothing despite his royal status. Then he turned around. Their eyes met, his were the color of thunderstorms, gray with flashes of silver, and Alara felt something inside her chest snap into place. Like a puzzle piece she hadn't known was missing suddenly appearing exactly where it belonged. The bond. She had heard stories of fated mates, of course. Everyone had. The ancient magic that connected two souls so completely that they recognized each other instantly. But she had never believed it would happen to her. Not to a simple village healer. Demon's expression shifted from polite interest to absolute shock. His hand gripped the window frame so tightly that small sparks of electricity jumped between his fingers and the stone. "You," he whispered, his voice rough. "It's you." Alara couldn't speak. Her whole body trembled with the force of recognition. Every fiber of her being screamed that this man, this prince, belonged to her in some fundamental, undeniable way. A servant cleared her throat nervously. "Your Highness, this is Alara Windhaven, the heel."